This is probably one of the most famous photo series and equivalent film taken on Omaha Beach during the invasion of Normandy. Before we go to Omaha Beach, let me tell you about our Patreon page. If you enjoy our videos and want some exclusive behind-the-scenes content, or take a look at the archive materials we used for this video, make sure to sign up to our Patreon page to support us for only $3 a month. You will get access to a bunch of great stuff, including a military history-loving community. Plus, we will upload all of the archival footage and materials we used for this video in HD. Head over to patreon.com/nafudogs for more information. On the afternoon of June 6, 1944, Detachment P of the 165th Signal Photographic Company landed on Omaha Beach. They were the combat photographers that were attached to the 5th Engineer Special Brigade to film its activities during the invasion of Normandy. The detachment was under command of Lieutenant George Stack. Under him were 2 motion picture cameramen, D. Sergeant Val Pope and Private First Class Francis Lee, 2 photographers, Private First Class Walter Rosenblum and Private Louis Weintraub, and a driver, Private First Class Gerald Smith. Lieutenant George Stack wrote to a fellow officer in the Signal Corps about his landings on D-Day.
"Boy, that landing was one horrible hell, John. I came in on an LCT which landed in the afternoon on D-Day. Was slated to land much earlier with the second wave, but the beach we were to land on turned out to be the most difficult to hit. Jerry had machine guns and 88s trained on every inch of that beach. When we landed and I waded into shore through 4 feet of water, the 88s opened up on us and we hit the dirt. Private First Class Lee was with me. The barrage stopped and I dashed for the rocks which lined the beach about 25 yards from the water's edge. Then as the 88 started raining again, I hit the rocks in between 2 GIs. Shells landed very close that time and killed each one of those men on each side of me. I'll swear, John, I lived my whole life over again in those short minutes of that barrage."
According to George Stack, his men took 150 still pictures and 2,000 feet of motion picture film on D-Day. However, their most famous piece of film was not taken on D-Day. After June 6, the men of Detachment P continued to film and photograph the activities of the 5th Engineer Special Brigade. But the events on the morning of June 7th would be different from all others. In their own words, an act of heroism was performed that we shall always remember. According to the cameraman, a shell had hit an LCVP and she was left sinking about 200 yards out at sea. The men on the LCVP belonged to the 41-42nd Quartermaster Company. These men were responsible for supplying the troops inland. That morning, they were scheduled to land in several landing craft. All the LCTs were unloaded directly on the beach, except for LST-75, for which 5 LCVPs were used to land the troops on Omaha Beach. It was one of these LCVPs that was hit and sunk. Their unit history does not confirm that the LCVP was actually hit by an enemy shell. Now, those on deck who had managed to survive the initial sinking held on for dear life to the hull of the boat, which was all that was left afloat. A raging sea pounded at them, and it was quite evident that they would all go under, unless some quick help from shore was forthcoming. The 31-year-old Nick Rusin was one of the men trying to stay alive in the cold water, but he blacked out. 2 lieutenants of the 348 Engineered Combat Battalion, Lieutenant Walter Sedlowski and Lieutenant Morris W. Self, saw what was happening. Disregarding the cold and wet weather and still cold water, they got a rope, had some men hold one end on the shore and swim the other end out to the men on the hull. The lifeline was a good idea, except for one thing. The men on the hull were too cold and exhausted to be able to pull themselves in. The two lieutenants swam back to the shore and noticed a big black rubber life raft. They had two men fetch it, tossed it into the water, and swam back to the sinking hull. Lieutenant Sidlowski and Lieutenant Self can be seen coming back ashore with a rubber boat and a couple of survivors from the LCVP. Nick Rusin of the 4142nd Quartermaster Company, who blacked out in the water, can be seen dragged ashore, alive. According to his own statement, he blacked out after struggling from not drowning. His next recollection was being pulled from the water, freezing, gasping and vomiting seawater. But luckily, he survived. When the whole event was over, Lieutenant Walter Sidlowski collapsed on his knees. It was this moment that was captured by Walter Rosenblum. He recalled, "To me, he was the picture of heroic beauty." The morning reports of the 4142nd revealed that Private First Class Joseph Fisk and Private Richard Haberchak were killed in action due to artillery fire on the beachhead. Although these men died on June 7, we will never know if they died as a result of a possible shell that hit the LCVP. Apparently, Private Haberchak's body was never recovered and remains missing in action to this day. He is listed on the Wall of the Missing at the Normandy American Cemetery. Private Jesse Tidwell was killed in action as a result of drowning on the beachhead. We can only assume that he died as a result of the sinking of the LCVP. And Private Luke Villarreal was first listed as missing in action on June 7, but later listed as killed in action. We do not know what happened to him. Although the men of the 4142nd Quartermaster Company were not a combat unit, it was their landing at Omaha Beach that was probably the most memorable day for the company, and has been widely seen all over the world in various documentaries. For a long time it was thought that these images were taken on D-Day itself, June 6, 1944. This is because the captions of the photographs have different dates on them and the motion picture film was not dated at all. But the archived materials of Detachment P, the 348th Engineer Combat Battalion, and the 4142nd Quartermaster Company have shown that the events took place on June 7, 1944. It is unknown whether Francis Lee or Val Pope filmed the events. Both men were motion picture cameramen. Online articles mention Val Pope as the cameraman, but it's unclear which source they used. In fact, most of the D-Day footage was filmed by Francis Lee. Most credit of the photographs go to Walter Rosenblum. However, almost all photographs of the events were taken by Louis Weintraub. Lieutenant Walter Sidlowski and Morris Self were awarded the Bronze Star Medal for this action. Both men, along with Private First Class James E. Stanton, another man of the 348 Engineer Combat Battalion, were photographed by Louis Weintraub as they were changing into dry clothes. When we contacted the family of Private Stanton, they had never seen the photographs and film in which their father played a major role. All three men survived the war and continued their lives. Walter Sidlowski joined the NYPD and rose to the rank of a detective. Walter Rosenblum became a teacher and taught photography at Brooklyn College for 40 years. His daughter, Nina, is an Oscar award-winning director and created an hour-long documentary about her father. In it, Walter Sidlowski and Walter Rosenblum met for the first time since the war.
It was scary for someone who'd never seen a dead person before, and I'm sure you never did too, Louis.
No.
It was quite something.
All new.
All new, right. But the picture showed what you were made of and how you responded. Pictures become very well known. It's been seen everywhere. It's been printed everywhere. In a way, it's a photograph that I'm very strongly identified with. And so you're part of history. Unfortunately, I recorded it so that it's evident for everybody else what you did and what you accomplished. I'm so glad we met again.
God bless you.
Couldn't
Good
be
to see you
nicer.
again.
Yeah, you take care now.